Hi there, my name is Donal, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you all about the DZOFilm PAVO 2x anamorphic lenses and my experience using them here in Svalbard on a sailing expedition circumnavigating these Arctic islands. DZO did send me these lenses. They sent me a 28, a 40, and a 75mm, which I'm using on the Canon C80 in Super 35 mode, shooting in Canon Log 3. And I'm going to be sharing with you my experience directly using them, filming the sailboat, the landscape, and just the elements of this trip around Svalbard. Obviously, they're really well built, they have an incredible aesthetic to them, and the focus throw as well as the aperture rings are very smooth and really well built. I've been not using a focus wheel, I've actually been hand holding everything, and I found it really easy to use in combination with the C80. I have my rig set up here with handles and a monitor. I'm not using a matte box on the lenses because the C80 actually has an internal ND system, which is one of the benefits that I'm using this camera system. It's because I would like to just minimize the rig, so to speak, even though this is already pretty big. But these lenses are aperture t2.1, which is amazing because you can capture a lot of light, and that's not really been an issue at the moment here in Svalbard because it's July and there is no night, so it's quite bright all the time. But having the 2.1 aperture is really nice to be able to shoot some things when it gets a bit dimmer, with overcast, and when there is a little bit less available light, even though it doesn't get dark here in Svalbard right now. Well, it's actually quite warm. This is strange. I'm here in the high Arctic and it's pretty hot. What I have found is that I'm actually shooting mostly a little bit higher than 2.1 on these lenses. If you do shoot at a little bit of a higher aperture number, you get that incredible sharpness of the subject or the thing that you're focusing on, plus the wonderful fall off on the edges. And there's that incredible characteristic look that the lenses have, being anamorphic. You get the distortions and all of these sort of peculiarities of the lens elements as they are bringing in light in a specific and interesting way. They're very characteristic and they're very different in terms of the look that you get out of these lenses from anything that I've ever used before. So they're very specific in the way that you would use them. I think it lends to the lenses themselves to use them in a scenario like this where you're capturing quite a wide landscape and a lot of different elements in the same frame. The close focus distance of the lenses is actually pretty great. I've been getting pretty close to many different things and filming with a lot of depth of field, getting the thing that I'm focusing on very close and a lot of distance in the images here. Especially here on the boat, I can focus on capturing elements of light and small details and get quite close, but also frame things up in a very interesting way with the 2x anamorphic. Personally, for me, 2x is actually been a little bit too wide. I've shot a lot of experimental shots here on the boat now, and I really like the way that the images look in the end, but I think it'll be hard for me to incorporate the wideness into something specific because it's such a skinny frame, 2x. Even though I'm shooting in 4K on this camera, it is a little bit harder to punch in because you lose that characteristic on the edges, but it does give you an incredible look in that extremely wide format. I think it's more for specific use cases and creating something obviously a little bit more artistic and elemental. It could be very interesting for that. Because the lenses are also Super 35, it does create limitations for the camera systems that they can be used on. Perhaps if there was a camera system that shot Super 35 and in 8K, you might be able to crop into the most interesting elements of the frame to be able to utilize the wide range that you have in the horizontal sort of aspect ratio. I've been monitoring on the Atomos Ninja here as well as on the back of the C80, and I find that it's very inspiring when you see it on the back of the camera, but when you get into the edit itself and see it on the computer, it's very, very wide. And for me, I think that there's quite a limitation in terms of practical uses for these lenses. At least in the documentary world, I think it would be difficult to be able to use them and be switching between the 28, the 40, and the 75 on a practical shoot. Like if I was out in the field, they're not necessarily a running gun lens system. I think it's great if you have some planned out shots and you know exactly sort of the things that you want to shoot. You can use each of these lenses for a very specific case, whether it's capturing details, the wide landscape, bringing the foreground and the background together. There's a lot of different options as long as you don't have that time pressure and you can plan out your shots ahead of time. It could be interesting to use them for some sort of poetic vision of journey, like here on the ship, or maybe a portrait of a person and something a bit shorter and elemental that way. If I was to stick with one of these lenses, I would definitely stick with the 40. It's pretty versatile. It's not quite as wide as the 28, but not as punched in, obviously, as the 75. And it gives a lot of options for being able to frame different things. You can still get pretty wide because it's a 2x anamorphic, but you can also get quite close, capture elements and details, and get a lot in the frame. Another quality that I really love about these lenses is as a kit, it's very consistent across each of the lenses, the contrast as well as the flares, which makes it very easy to create a sequence together between the 28, the 40, and the 75. I'd imagine if you're trying to create a film that is, dreamy and brings up the elements of surrealism, something that's almost larger than being real, these lenses would be perfect for that. But again, for documentary, they're not really as applicable if you need to really be on the move and follow the action of something, because there's limitations in terms of what you can capture in a single frame, and I think it's important to recognize that. Not all lenses are good for every single scenario, but these lenses would be good for creating very artistic films. If you've ever shot with a 2x anamorphic, I'm really interested in seeing the types of projects and shots that you're capturing with this type of lens with 2x anamorphic, with it being so wide. So please drop a link to whatever projects you've been working on or publish below, and I can't wait to check it out.